contemplative prayer then is what is called in the Christian tradition a process initiated by God, but accepted by oneself, in which we begin to move towards the realization of who we really are, beyond concepts, beyond the homemade self, and beyond our over-identification with the group. So these had the preliminary stages of this journey have been called by different names in the Christian tradition. And so all of them presuppose, it seems to me at least, that prayer is primarily a relationship with the ultimate reality. In other words, prayer is not prayers or particular rituals. These are expressions of a disposition, and it's the disposition and how that disposition reflects a mature or immature relationship with God, using the Judeo-Christian term or label for the ultimate reality for the purposes of this discussion. So here is the presence that is so present we don't know that it's present. Now, it breaks through our ideas every now and then, but the presence is twofold in the Christian perspective. One, it's a creative presence which holds us in existence at every moment. Those of you who have a Christian background may think of creation as a one-time event. This is a misrepresentation. Creation is every moment that God is holding us in existence. So he really is like grandma holding us in her arms, or grandpa if you prefer. It really is that close, closer than thinking, than consciousness itself, the source of consciousness within us. And in fact, the first thing God sees in us, I think, is himself. And it's himself in us that eventually recognizes God too, so that, as Paul says, eventually God is all in all, the ultimate non-dual attitude. But here, they began to call contemplative prayer pure prayer, meaning just the relationship. So it would be equivalent to prayer in secret, where you're not doing any particular acts, but simply offering your being, or as the cloud carries on the tradition, you're offering your naked being, that is, naked from thoughts and particular acts. And this is the purest kind of prayer, where it's just relationship, where it's just the gift of one's presence. For instance, if you probably know an elderly couple who's a model of love, and brought up the kids, been through all kinds of diseases and trials, but maybe a few bankruptcies, and they've reached a point where they don't have to talk all the time, where they can sit down and share a sunset together, maybe hold hands, but they don't need to converse because they've moved to a place you might call communion, where they like to just be with each other. And this is a lively image of the personal character that is present in Christian contemplation, where you're just present to God, not with conversation, which is fine at another time, but you've moved, as I spoke of this morning, to a place of deeper intimacy, a time to sort of just love each other. And love here is very pure in the sense that it's primarily just the gift of oneself to the other, or the enjoyment or the reception of the other's presence. So this presence to presence communion is what makes, I think, any relationship contemplative in the broad sense of the term. That is to say, and it's beyond just an emotional exchange. It's a real spiritual interaction without action, because it's a presence to presence. It's suggested again in Mother Teresa was asked once, well, how do you pray, Mother? And she said, I just listen to God. And it was asked then, what does God do? He listens to me. Well, that's something of a Zen koan, so don't laugh too soon, because there's an enormous reality contained in that. Because what are you doing when you're really listening intently for music or a speaker or something? Nothing. Because if you do anything, you might miss a word or a note or something. So listening, when it is fully mature and gets deeper, and you listen with your ears and then your heart and then with your inmost being and then in secret. So listening in secret is just to be and to receive the being of the beloved, if there is that much duality even. And remember, love is unifying, so there's a different meaning to non-duality in the Christian perspective, which is the union of two that has become a kind of unity, but nevertheless there's an awareness of a two-ness as well as a oneness. So prayer in secret then is the deepest esteem, and it became known then as prayer, as pure prayer. That is nothing but relationship, nothing but sheer presence, a being to being kind of exchange. Well, this has its roots again in the Old Testament, an enormous continuity between the spirituality of the Old and New, although certainly differences. But to look at Moses again, at some point in their passage through the desert, the poor man was beset with administrative problems and complaints.
Like an Abbott at Spencer.
Yes, and complaints. He was being criticized by his staff. And so God said to him, bring these people to the tent of meeting, which was the place Moses hung out to be refreshed in this difficult journey through the desert. And when they all got there, he said to them, one was Miriam and one was Aaron, he said to them, look, I have lots of prophets. I'm paraphrasing. Some I speak to in dreams, some I speak viva voce, some I talk to. But with my servant Moses, listen to the pride in God's voice, I speak mouth to mouth. Sometimes it's watered down to read face to face, but it's the same idea. No intermediary. Someone brought up the subject of intermediary. But this indicates God's delight or pleasure in being, relating to people mouth to mouth. That is, without the intermediary of thoughts, words, or particular actions, but a sheer naked being to naked being. And this leaves the self out, because the self has its own projects and thoughts, even when it's a fairly advanced in the spiritual journey. So what is a mouth-to-mouth conversation? As far as I could tell, it means a kiss. Isn't that what usually happens, mouth-to-mouth? So this is the symbol of God's passionate love for the human species and its individuals therein. So this is a revelation of God's desire to give himself to us. Because what are people expressing when they're passionately kissing on the mouth? You can tell me. You should know. What it means, it seems to me, I'm in a better position to see the symbolism of this, I guess, is that person is trying to pour their love into their beloved, that is to say, or possess the beloved. They want to become one with it, as an aspiration or a sigh or a breathing that is very intense and expresses the inmost heart. And And so this is what it means, that Moses would like to have this kind of relationship. Not just with Moses, God bless him, but with, this is the way it is. And this is why it's so unbelievable that people don't believe it. In other words, in any case, so much for the prayer in secret. It means when someone is kissing you on the lips, God's saying, shut up. They don't want to hear about the weather. They want just to love you. And so just to receive God is itself a great art, and perhaps more important than all our projects for doing things, though these, of course, will happen as a result of that relationship becoming activated, since this mouth-to-mouth conversation, because of human situations, can't go on 24 hours a day. It's supposed to lead to something, and what it leads to is not the glorification of ourselves, but enabling us to let self subside to a small I and to allow the great I am to begin to manifest in all our activity, even the most simple, trivial. In other words, God is expressing in this revelation his desire to be our companion in every way, and to be our beloved if we were willing. And more than that, to be united in a oneness that is absolutely indescribable.